What's up, markerheads? It's Karen from Art by Karen E. Haley, and today we're going to learn how to do an out-of-focus background. I am going to be telling you which colors I chose and why, and we're going to be using this little character. This technique is something that would be great for beginners to learn how to do because it makes it really easy to put a background that you don't have to think a lot about. You don't have to worry too much about perspective when you're doing an out-of-focus background because it's out of focus. It's also a good exercise in learning how to make something the main focal point of your image while putting all of the background in without it being super over-detailed. So I hope that you guys find this video helpful. Again, I would really appreciate if you guys would subscribe if you like this tutorial, and if you have any tutorial suggestions, leave them in the comments below. And let's get right on into this video. The first thing you will need to do before you start coloring your background is to draw your character, of course. So I've already done that because obviously I don't have time to include that in the video. And then you will want to plan your color scheme. So I have here some swatches. And these are the colors of the character. I have a little example of my character here. This is a character that I made specifically for using as a tutorial character. I have quite a few of these little guys, and she is comprised of these colors, mainly the light pinks and the purples, and she has a little bit of blue. And so I wanted to make sure these are the colors I have ready for that. So I have my markers over here. And I want her to be in a forest scene, so I will be using these colors. And the reason I've chosen these particular markers is because they are mid-tone greens with one lighter green color, and she is mainly light colors. She is a very light valued character. And it's important when you're doing illustrations to think about how colors are going to contrast with each other. And that's why I've swatched them, and this way I can compare them against each other really well and make that choice. I wanted a softer look for the full illustration, so I didn't want to go with very, very dark colors, but I also didn't want to go for anything that was the same lightness as her main colors. And I may even include one color that's slightly darker than this, but I will see where things are near the end of the coloring and see if I need to come in and add anything else. So I have all my markers ready to go, and that way I do not have to get up and look for anything. It just makes things a little more streamlined. So I'm going to go ahead and color this character and then come back to you when I'm ready to start the background. I do want to note here that I will be adding some green shading to this character, or at least some very muted greenish gray shading to her, just to center her and place her in this scenery that I'm putting her in. She is going to be in a forest scene, and in real life, forests kind of have this greenish color about them, and whatever characters you place in the forest will tend to reflect the colors of their surroundings. And I like to amplify that in my illustrations. I've got a Pikachu over here who has some dark purple shading, and that is part of the scenery, and also I have included some colors of Pikachu in the background as well, and that way everything ties together and the whole color scheme is very cohesive. And I know that this is mostly about the type of out of focus background that I'm trying to teach you how to do, but I just want to note that with every background I do, I try to include all of the colors of my color scheme in the background and all of the colors of my color scheme in the character. This is the color I'm going to use to shade. It's not the same colors that I selected for my background, mainly because this is a more muted green. This is YG61, and it's about the same value as YG11, but it's very grayish. And this will be a very subtle way to add green. I will be adding a layer of this and then going back over it with her pink, probably a darker version of pink, or maybe even the purple. That will mute this color out and put the green on her, but make it a little bit less bold. I want this image to be more soft than my other illustrations have been of late, just because this character is a very soft and innocent character in general, and I want to put that personality into the illustration as well. And by the way, this is a character that's an original character, and I'm going to be using her and several other of my original characters in tutorials from now on, and if you guys would like to give her a name, she does not have one. And I would really think that it would be special if you guys could come up with something to call her. She has a very sweet and innocent childlike personality, and that is kind of the thing I want you guys to keep in mind when naming her. So yeah, if you guys want to name her, please leave a suggestion in the comments below. Another tip is light sources. Remember where your light source is coming from. When I'm coloring the character, I want to make sure that all the shadows fall on the right side. So for instance, I'm having the light source come from kind of this angle, from the front and slightly to the left. And that will put all of the shadows on this side. She has feathers, so I also need to put that texture in there and make sure that these feathers are catching light where they should be and stuff like that. But for the most part, she's going to be more shadowed on this side. And so I'm going to come with some lighter flicks and kind of blend that shadow in. And then also some more solid strokes and make that marker ink darker. And that way you can get a multitude of values from one marker by layering and pressing harder or lighter. That's one of the great things about Copics, is they're so intuitive and easy to control, at least once you get the hang of them. So that's another tip. Make sure you know where your light is coming from. Alright, I've got all of her shadows in, so I'm going to come in with the next marker, and I think for her body color, where she's pink, I'm going to come in with this little purple marker. This is V12, and it's just a little bit darker than the pink that I'm using, so coming in here and putting that in, and I may even go back over it with a little bit of green. I just really want that green color to be visible but not overpowering, because for the most part I want her to look like her pretty pink little pastel self, so I don't want that green to overtake her color scheme, and it really will disappear a bit once I color in the background because it's such a light green. But I also need to put in her regular shading, so that's what I'm doing right now. And I'm actually looking at this and thinking, oh, maybe this purple's a little too bold, but I've already started with it and I should have tested it beforehand. So case in point, test your colors beforehand. Sometimes you may regret your decision, but I'm gonna go with it. I've already got it halfway done, so here I am working with it. There's always ways to fix mistakes like that. If you've gone with something a little too dark, you can always mute it again with your lighter color. For instance, I could go back over it all with RV00, which is what her main color is, and I probably will. That will really lighten that color back up and help to soften all of the color to look the way I want it. I want it to be pretty soft, so I think that's what I'll do. Here I am softening the edges of some of these shadows. I think I will leave the cast shadows dark, and that would be the ones coming from these ribbons and the feathers on this side. And that will kind of show you which shadows are being cast and which ones are form shadows, which follow the curvature of her shape, of the structure of this character. Alright, I'm ready to start on my background because I've colored my character and shaded her and all of that good stuff. I might finish up some areas that I might have skipped later on, but for now I'm ready to do my background and I would like to share with you how I do this. So I have my 3 greens here. Like I said, I want to put her in a forest scene, so that was my main concern when choosing my colors. I could have gone with anything really, but what I wanted was a forest scene. Whatever you want to use for your own character, for your own scenery, is up to you, but these are the colors I'll be using. The main thing you want to think about is the value of your colors, the color darkness. So, for instance, my character is very, very light, so I chose some colors that were a little bit darker than her. just so that they would help her stand out, but I did not go with anything too dark. I wanted her to be in a soft, sunny looking forest. I don't want her to be in a dark, spooky one, so I wanted to go with something not quite so dark. The first thing I'm going to do is take my lightest green, which is YG11, and I'm going to sketch in some basic shapes. These shapes do not need to be super detailed. They can be pretty basic. For instance, I'm going to put a bush in here, and I'm going to put a tree in somewhere else. And these shapes are really a guideline. They do not need to be followed very perfectly, and you can change your mind and do, oh, maybe I wanted to put a different thing here, like a tree or something right here. And sketching in with the lightest marker is going to mean that you have some flexibility. You can change your mind, because this is going to be all blended out. You're going to be layering a lot of ink, and so these little sketches are not going to be critical, and they're not going to be permanent. They're not going to ruin your illustration if you, I don't know, like draw something dumb here like a smiley face. That's going to be covered up, especially since I plan on making that dark. So don't be afraid to sketch with your markers. That's one of the reasons they are so blendable, is because you can change what you're doing. And speaking of blending and things like that, these three background colors, I made sure I had refills for these, just because there's always a chance that you could be using a lot of ink in your backgrounds like this. In a out of focus background, you do tend to blend a lot more, and so having something that you can refill at will makes it a lot easier. So I've got my little sketch in here, and I'm going to start going in with my darkest color first, and that is because I will be able to soften this thing's edges as I layer on with these other two lighter colors. So I think my darkest shape is going to be the trees, and I want these trees to just be one color basically. I don't want to worry too much about their shape and their level of detail, because again, this is an out of focus background. We're going to be fuzzing it up later anyway, so it's not critical to add details to this, and it's not really that important to think about local color, because things like this will be pretty blurred out in a photograph. You'll see things like really soft, fuzzy background. It's just green blobs, and so that's kind of what I'm going for. The color of the trees will kind of just take on the color of the surroundings, and that's all I really need. Right now I'm just adding some moss. So I'm going to finish adding in all of my dark color, and then I'll come back. Alright, I've got my darkest areas in, and down here I've really roughly patched in some of this G46, and I'm going to color right over that with G24 and make a gradient on this big brush that's behind her, this big pile of bushes. So I'm going to go entirely over this dark color with G24, and this will really soften all of these imperfections and uneven splotches in my coloring. It turns out my marker was running out of ink, and I actually do not have a refill for G46, but it's not that big of a deal if one of them is running low, because you can always color over it with one of your other lighter markers and smooth out the color of it. Alright, now up here around the top of this, tree, I'm adding in some more of this G24, and this will do a couple things. It will add some depth to this part. It's kind of pushing some of these layers of hanging foliage down behind the trunk here of this branch, in this tree, but it's also softening this dark green. And I'm also going to be coming in next with some of the colors from the character. I think I will add in some purples on the trunks of the trees and blend out everything with a bit of pink and a bit of light green in the background here. And I'm also going to add in some more trees through here, and these trees are going to look like they're a little further away just because they're lighter. I definitely want to make sure if I cross over any existing ink that's already dry to kind of blend that back, because I don't want these trees to look like they're in front. I want them to look like they're in back, and I also don't want them to be very bold. So here I am. There we go. And these are gonna start to blur a lot once I come in and blend some more. I also want to say that this butterfly needs to stand out more, so I think what I'm going to do is add another tree right here with my dark color, because I want that butterfly to stand out. I want it to be one of the things that you look at when you look at the piece. As it stands, the YG11, which I plan on using for the rest, is going to be the same value as this butterfly, so it needs something dark right behind it so that we can see it. Alright, now I'm going to go into time-lapse for the rest of this, but what I'm going to be doing is adding light colors. I'm going to be using this color, and I'm going to be using some of this color as well. This is RV00 and YG11. And I'm going to basically be smoothing and softening things, and I will also be adding in the purples that I mentioned I was going to add in. So my V12 and my V15. And I'm going to be doing a lot of layers of YG11 because right now this doesn't really look as out of focus as I want it to. And that's just the nature of the way you build this type of illustration up. You have to build up your shapes and then blend the pants off of them. So I'm going to start. Here you can already tell that I've done a layer in and it's really out of focus now on this side. And that's exactly what I want it to look like. And so I think I'm going to come in with my accent colors now that are in my character and just kind of tie everything together. And so that's basically it. I'm going to go into time lapse and do the rest. The last thing I'm going to go through and do is take out some of the sharper edges in the background because I really want it to be soft. So what I'm going to do is, this is the tree that I colored in with G46, and I'm going to go in with G24 and really go along that edge, soften it up, and then blend towards the center. And I've already done this on the other side. And one thing when you're coloring is backgrounds that are darker than your character is to go kind of slow around the edges. Not too slow or you'll have this dark outline, but if you slow down just a little bit, it'll keep you from drawing a line right across your picture. Anyway, so what I've done is I've put this slightly lighter color along the edge of this tree. Now I'm going to come back with an even lighter color. This is YG11, and I'm going to lighten that edge just a little. Just blend it in. And that's going to really soften the edge of that tree and push it back. And I'm going to do a little bit of that with this one as well. And maybe even a little bit of this tree. And my main reason for doing this is I want the edge quality of everything behind my little character here. Man, she needs a name. Somebody give her a name. Hashtag name my bird. I really want her to have all of the sharp edges, and everything in the background needs to be soft. It needs to be blended out, and I really could have even gone with a much more vague bunch of shapes for the background. You could even just go with circles that are blended out if you wanted to, and you could get something that still reads as forest without having any tree shapes at all, just because of the color scheme that you use. And that's a really great tip, is to think about the environment you want to put your character in, and whether it has really rounded organic shapes or whether it has angular shapes, like a cityscape. Maybe you could use really faded out, blended out rectangular gray shapes or something like that, and still have your character look like they're in a city environment without it being super harsh. And so that's kind of one of the main benefits of this type of illustration, is you can use a lot of blending to put a simple background in behind a character and make them the main focus without making it hard to tell where they are. I'm also going to leave this edge just a tiny bit sharper than the trees because these bushes are closer to her, so we could see more focus in these leaves based on how close they are to the viewer and to the character versus these background trees. Anyway, that is basically it. That's basically how to do a blended out of focus background. I hope that you enjoyed this, and I hope it was helpful to you. I tried to put in a little bit of extra tips here and there about character coloring and placing your character in an environment, and I hope that was helpful too. I could do a more in-depth tutorial about that in a future video. I really enjoyed making this tutorial. I feel like I've finally found a way to make tutorials that I enjoy, and it's kind of a mixture of talking along with the steps and skipping ahead. So I hope that you like this enough to subscribe, because I will be doing a lot more tutorials in the future. In fact, if you would like to see something specific, please let me know in the comments, because I will be doing another tutorial in a week or so from now, just because it's more important than a lot of the other things I have on my agenda, and it's very useful to put tutorials on my channel. So if you have any tutorial suggestions, please leave them in the comment section below, and if you like this, please subscribe, and of course help me name my character, because I'm going to be using her and her little pals in a future video. So I hope that you have some good suggestions. Thanks so much for watching, everyone, and I will see you guys on Wednesday with a sketchbook video.